Gender Forking, a Twilight Saga podcast. I'm Lori.
I'm Sam.
And we're back.
We're coming at you from a brand new recording space.
Yeah.
Hot off the press.
You remember our guest star, Alex, from earlier in the season?
Of Sam fame.
Of Sam fame. This is Alex's old bedroom, which is now their office space, aka our podcast studio.
Yeah. I just built a desk with my
bare
hands.
Bare hands.
Bare hands. And that is what the microphone is sitting on. So we're in Portland, Maine, currently on the tail end of a wild blizzard.
Mm-hmm. I got into town yesterday during the blizzard. And I'm here for New Year's. Yep.
New content, baby.
New year, new content.
New year, new content. Same me.
Same me.
Same Twilight.
Same Twilight. New outlook.
Mm-hmm. I have an amendment from a previous episode.
Oh.
So in our previous episode, we talked to Lori's partner, JJ. The day I got back to Maine, he called me on the phone. I definitely have told you about this.
Okay, I forgot.
We asked him to share his favorite Twilight-related memories, and he said something, like, about watching the movie.
Oh, yeah, you have told me about this.
He called me the next day to be like, I would like to amend my statements. He amended that his favorite Twilight memory to when he literally proposed to you, quoting Twilight.
I should probably also amend whatever I've said about my favorite Twilight moments to that.
And we also talked about your lightly Twilight-themed engagement party.
Yeah.
It was
really great.
Two. So those moments exist.
Those moments exist. Should we do the Forks cast?
Oh, yeah. Good catch.
Thank you. Today in Forks, it is 48 degrees and raining. It will rain for literally the next 9 days.
Gorgeous.
So
I love that.
It's gonna be pretty much the same for the next 9 days.
And therefore probably the same
and therefore
next couple
probably
episodes.
the same for the next few episodes. We do the Forks cast.
Today we read chapters 6 and 7 of Twilight for today's episode. These are really dope chapters.
Yeah.
They go really well together. These are the chapters where Bella is discovering that Edward is a vampire. It's such an interesting contrast from the last chapter, which was basically all dialogue, and these ones are mostly narration.
Mm-hmm.
And Edward's not in them.
Frankly, like, very beautiful narration.
Really beautiful. Oh my god.
I was kind of struck by, like, the natural imagery.
Yeah. I was like, can't wait to go.
Chapters. Yeah, no, I was like, oh, I love this.
There was some really beautiful descriptions.
Yeah.
There's a lot of description. So for those of you reading along at home, we'll be starting on page 110, chapter 6, Scary Stories. We left off at the end of Blood Type. Bella and Edward have made plans to go to Seattle together on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
But I think is it next Saturday or is it...
I want to say it's next Saturday because...
This is also the weekend. Yeah.
And she has La Push plans this weekend.
Yes. The Saturday of the dance is when they're planning on going.
Yeah. So she goes into school and she knows that Edward and Emmett are not going to be there because Edward just told her that they were starting the weekend early and going hunting. No.
That's right.
They're going hiking. Sorry.
Yeah.
As far as she knows.
Yeah. But they're going hunting.
At this place called Goat Rock.
The first thing that she says in this chapter is that she's trying to read the third act of Macbeth. So I spent probably 20 minutes today reading a synopsis of the third act of Macbeth. Trying to see what the parallels were. Because I figure that Stephenie Meyer always is putting in different literature allegories that are not very tight, but they're just kind of there. I'm not super familiar with Macbeth, but I was doing my best. And I don't think that there's any one thing that it's pointing to, but the third act of Macbeth is all about the murders and there's some supernatural stuff happening, the ghost is appearing. I was just thinking generally about Bella and Edward and Macbeth and Lady Macbeth, and the point of Macbeth is that for Macbeth and Lady Macbeth is how they feel how they're psychologically impacted by the murders and the actions that they take, which feels like a fun parallel to the vampires or the Cullens in particular.
I can't believe you're openly saying the name of the Scottish play.
What?
I can't believe you're openly saying the name of the Scottish play.
We're not going.
You weren't in theater for however many years.
Yeah, but we don't have any shows to do right now.
This is a show.
Is this our theater performance?
A little bit.
Damn. Well, it's all downhill from here.
I haven't seen it in a really long time.
Yeah. I've never seen it all the way through. I've never seen like a stage production. My school did a 1-act version, so they had to say it. No, I was not. But anyway, the point of that story is that I tried to make a literary connection and then wasn't really able to do it. But it's something to think about. Something to think about. There's some interesting dynamics here between the humans. We get a lot of Lauren in this chapter, and I was just kind of thinking about what her purpose in the story is.
Bella's narration talking about and like describing Lauren gets more unkind as this chapter goes on.
For some reason that Bella doesn't know yet, Lauren doesn't seem to like her.
Yeah.
And she's saying unkind things, or she's speaking about Bella in a way that is unkind to other people and doesn't seem to be pleased with Bella joining in on their social plans. I think it ends up being because she's jealous of the attention that Tyler is giving Bella, I think. Is it Tyler?
It must be. I noted down that, like, I would love to see how having Lauren present in the movie would have changed Jessica's character, because, like, obviously Jessica's, well, not obviously, but Jessica's a combination of the characters Lauren and Jessica.
Yeah, it seems
from the book, it seems, and so I mean, like, it seems like, you know, Angela's the neutral, or not the neutral, Angela's the really positive, like, friend that Bella enjoys sitting next to. She mentions that a couple times throughout these 2 chapters about, like, how pleasant being around Angela is, how she doesn't try to fill space with conversation, things like that. And then Lauren is, like, this bitch that hates Bella and is, like, talking shit about her, like, very openly. Like, will whisper about her to people and, like, is, like, being really obvious about it. And then Jessica's kind of in the middle. Like, Jessica's not outwardly unkind, but
she's definitely jealous
of the connection between Mike and Bella, and also Edward and Bella. Yeah. And so it's interesting that Stephenie chose to have 3 characters.
Yeah, I can see why they cut her out in the movie.
Yeah.
Because she kind of just is doing the same thing as Jessica, but just more in the background. The only I don't remember what happens with Lauren and the rest of the story, but in Life and Death it plays out more in the quote-unquote gender-swapped version. Beau has this whole thing where he, like, confronts
Logan?
The equivalent of Tyler.
Oh.
Taylor. Or something. It's, like, very dramatic and hilarious. But that's not in this story at all. Yeah. But the only thing that she does that I can think of, like, what her purpose is, and it didn't necessarily have to be done this way, is that later on, when they're at La Push, Lauren's the one who's, like, making this connection to the Quileutes about, like, the Cullens. Yeah. She's the one who is, like, calling her out about, like, being friends with the Cullens in front of everyone, or in front of whoever's there, which was kind of, like, the only kind of, like, plot device I could think of that might be, like, that might be Lauren's purpose. I don't know.
Which is strange, because it's, like, all the writing advice that I've ever gotten for creative writing is, like, if it doesn't add something to your story, cut it out.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Which I'm not, like, I don't mind that Lauren is there. I think
maybe she's just, like, the person that Tyler ends up going out with, and because I don't know if Eric has someone to go out with, but Mike does. Like, all these boys that are pining after her end up having, like, a lady equivalent. Yeah. It's kind of like a weird, touchy, catty thing that's happening, and that's kind of uncomfortable, honestly, for me to read.
It's weird, because it's like, I don't know, I see Bella's narration of her calling her, like, voice nasally, and, like, things like that, and I'm like...
It feels very, like, Taylor Swift, you belong with me. She wears short skirts, I wear t-shirts, she's ship captain, and I'm on the bleachers.
Yes. Yeah.
Very problematic message that some types of girls or some types of feminine expression are, you know, inferior in some way to others for any number of reasons is like a problematic take.
It does set up this opportunity for Mike to defend Bella, and so Lauren is kind of saying, I don't know why, and Bella overhears this, like, I don't know why Bella even sits with us at all, she might as well just go sit with the Cullens. Yeah. And Mike is like, she's my friend, she sits with us.
I enjoyed Mike in this chapter.
Yeah, Mike was pretty cool. Yeah. Like, Mike Newton writes.
Yeah. He was good. He was good in this one.
Yeah.
Before they go on the trip, she's talking to Charlie very briefly on page 112. And she narrates that she doesn't intend on telling Charlie that she's going to Seattle with Edward.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a really interesting choice.
Because I feel like I was just thinking about the last time we were recording that she didn't want to ask Charlie for permission to go to Port Angeles because it would set a bad precedent.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting that she's already decided she's not going to
even going to tell him.
Yeah,
not even just asking. She's not even going to tell him that she's
doing
it.
So I know she's taking advantage of the fact that he goes fishing every single weekend.
Yeah.
Which is like, you know, she could be doing worse things, but she's literally going to Seattle with a vampire.
Yeah.
So
I guess she doesn't know at this point that he's a vampire, but...
Yeah. But once she finds out, her plans don't change.
No. If anything, she's like looking forward to it more.
She's like, oh, sick.
I remember when we were reading Life and Death, we were reading this scene and we were like, oh my god, there's so many people on this trip. There are literally so many people.
There's so many people.
There are, I counted, there's 16 people from Forks High School going on this trip. And then when the Quileutes meet up, there's 23 people.
Bella's kind of curious about this story that Edward has given her about him going camping over the weekend at Goat Rocks. She, like, just nonchalantly is asking Charlie, Dad, do you know a place called Goat Rocks or something like that? And he's saying, yeah, why? And she's like, some kids were talking about camping there. And he's like, there's too many bears. People go there during hunting season. It's not a good place for camping. First of all, hilarious. I meant one for bears. Second of all, I looked it up and I was like kind of reading about Goat Rocks and like the area around it, and it's on a Native American reservation, the Yakima Indian reservation. And I started thinking, like, this was just me curious about what it looked like, but and it like spiraled and I was like really distracted. I was just thinking, and we'll talk about this later because it comes up a lot later in the chapter, but like the Quileutes are supposedly, in this story, the only Native American people that are mentioned to have any tie to, like, supernatural occurrences, and, like, they have this treaty about, like, the vampires not being allowed on their land, and I don't know, it's interesting that, like, they're going to hunt on another reservation, and it's like, don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know? It's like...
Right.
I mean, I guess you really can't, if you think about it, like...
It's all
indigenous land.
Yeah.
Like, they could literally would have to go to the ocean and eat a bunch of fish blood.
Do it. It's like, just do it.
Just do that, but...
Eat lobsters. I mean, other tribes are, like, mentioned briefly at different points in the saga, like, especially, I think, with, like, Jacob's sisters.
And the Embry's dad, or Embry's mom is from a neighboring, like, nation that... I have some things to say about.
Okay. Probably what that was is just Stephenie didn't include that information.
Yeah.
Like, didn't think about it at all. And didn't think about it as indigenous land.
Yeah, true.
Probably. We said, I think in the previous chapter, that we were like, who the fuck is Lee Stevens? He's on this trip. He's on this trip.
Yeah, he's on this trip. And Lee and somebody named Samantha, and I was like, wow, Samantha representation.
Yeah.
And then...
Ben and Connor.
Yeah.
So Mike, Tyler, Eric, Ben, Connor, Jessica, Angela, Lauren, 3 other girls who are not named. Yeah. Lee, Samantha, and then I think Lee brings 2 extra people, and Bella. And then 7 Quileute people who are not all introduced.
The only people that are introduced are Sam and Jacob, right?
Yeah, that's true.
By name. I mean, we could guess that the others are...
Yeah, I didn't really pay attention to that, honestly.
Paul and...
Like, Quill,
Embry.
I don't remember if it's stated in Life and Death
who they are. I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think that...
We might have just assumed.
Yeah.
It could be anyone. There's, like, girls with them. There's a girl named Jessica with them who, like, who's that?
Yeah.
So, yeah, and then there's just really, really beautiful descriptions of this drive to La Push. Yeah. And I kind of noticed that this is the first time Bella's describing the scenery and she's enjoying it.
I wrote that too. So she's saying, like, gorgeous dense green forests and dark gray water and steel harbors and sheer cliff sides and soaring firs, and I thought this stone imagery was beautiful. Millions of large smooth stones that looked uniformly gray from a distance, but up close were every shade a stone could be: terracotta, sea green, lavender, blue gray, dull gold. I thought that was beautiful.
It's so beautiful.
And it's like, so she does think the Pacific Northwest is beautiful.
Yeah. It's also sunny, so maybe that's part of it. So she's just, like, in good spirits. And, of course, like, as she starts becoming more attached to Edward, like, she starts enjoying being there more. She ends up going hiking to the tidal pools.
I thought it was interesting that she was so fascinated by the tidal pools. And I was like, she's good at biology.
That's true.
She enjoys marine biology. Maybe that would be something that she would be interested in, like, studying. I don't know, because, like, she always talks about these books that she reads in English. Seems to come, like, literature and like, English writing and stuff like that, like, seems to come really easily to her and something she does in her free time, but academically, I think she could also be really interested in marine biology.
Yeah.
Because she's fascinated by this.
Yeah, it says she loved it when she was a kid.
There's this little passage that I really like. I really like Southern Gothic novels, and I thought that this, like, little passage sounded very Pacific Northwest Gothic. It's on the bottom of page 116, and it's saying that the green light of the forest was strangely at odds with the adolescent laughter, too murky and ominous to be in harmony with the light banter around me.
Totally.
And I was like, wow.
Yeah. I noticed that too. I really like, she describes forks like this, like, frequently, where she is describing the scenery, but also, like, the aura or, like, the ominous feeling of the scenery in a way that in reality it just kind of feels like that, but, like, in Twilight, like, there literally are things in the forest. You know?
Yeah.
So she captures that really well. On the bottom of page 117 is where the other people join, including Jacob. It's not, like, the most problematic thing, or maybe it is, but all, like, right off the bat, Stephenie Meyer's descriptions are very racial.
Yeah.
Very racial. Alright. Here she goes. Just go off. Just
we should read them.
Okay.
So
the first one's on 117. There's another one on 119.
Yeah, so she talks about as the Quileute people and Bella approaching them. As we got closer, we could see the shining straight black hair and copper skin of the newcomers. Not the worst, but not great.
Not great.
And then on 119, describing Jacob, she says, he looked 14, maybe 15, and had long, glossy black hair pulled back with a rubber band at the nape of his neck. His skin was beautiful, silky, and russet-colored. His eyes were dark, set deep above the high planes of his cheekbones. He had just a hint of childish roundness left around his chin. Altogether, a very pretty face. White people writing people of color, and then, like, what the words they always use to describe their skin.
Yeah,
like russet.
The skin. And also, there's a fine line, especially for white people writing people of color, in, like, the description of what their face looks like, and, like, assigning them, like, just kind of, like, stereotypical features.
Yeah, like high-planed cheeks.
Right.
And things like that. Long black hair.
And Bella notices, and Stephenie writes it this way, that a couple times I feel like that she's noticing, like, that Jacob is, like, beautiful. She says beautiful and pretty.
Yeah.
In this passage, which is, like, very interesting to me. Just, like, a hint of, like, some of the fetishization that's, like, going to come.
Yeah. It just seems really, like, this could be a description in, like, an erotic novel.
Yeah.
And, like, it wouldn't be any different, which is problematic for multiple reasons. Like, one, the sexualization of...
He's 15.
A 15-year-old.
Yeah.
That looks 14, maybe 15.
Yeah.
And then... also, like, the sexualization of Native people.
Yeah.
And then I have more to say when we get to, like, the myth, the creation story, rather.
Cool. Myth. So this is the first conversation that Bella and Jacob have in the story. They knew each other as kids, briefly. They spend pretty much the rest of the chapter talking. Bella really enjoys spending time with him. She thinks that he's easy to talk to and, like, enjoyable to talk to, and he's, like, a nice person. I know because Stephenie Meyer has said that originally Jacob was just supposed to be, like, this plot device to introduce the term vampire to the story, which is what he does in this chapter. It's really interesting to read it like that. If it had just stayed like that, that would be really interesting too.
Yeah.
Like, what would, like, the purpose of the Quileute Nation in the story would feel different. Not I wouldn't say better, but just, like, it would be even more kind of just, like, used as a, like, an access point for understanding the Cullens.
Yeah, and, like, an exposition of setting also, which is, like, I don't know if it's not necessary, but it's, like, it's not well researched, so it doesn't, it literally doesn't add, like, it adds to the story, but it's incorrect. So it's, like, setting up this, like, fake setting that doesn't exist in our world, that is using the terms of our world. And, like, of people that live in our world to, like further enrich this, like, fantasy world that Stephenie's created, and it's, like, pick one or the other. And pick the other.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting, though, and this is another, like, maybe this is how she saw this functioning, I don't know, but Jacob was talking about his sisters, Rachel and Rebecca. Like, Bella's wondering if they were there, because Bella kind of remembers them from childhood, and Jacob's like, no, Rachel got a scholarship to Washington State, and Rebecca married a Samoan surfer. She lives in Hawaii now. Bella makes this comment, like, married, wow. I was stunned. The twins were only a little over a year older than I was. And I was like, you're literally about to get married and you don't even know it.
Yeah. You're gonna be married in a year.
Yeah, so she's like, I don't know, grappling with young marriage. Yeah. And I'm like, is that intentional? Like, Stephenie had a map of the whole series, like... Is she trying to prepare Bella?
But did she? Because then she originally planned for Breaking Dawn to...
Oh, Forever
Dawn was going to happen right after, and she wasn't going to have New Moon, which is interesting because of all the hints of the werewolf stuff that come up in this section.
Do you know if they got married? Were supposed to get married in Forever Dawn?
I feel like they were.
Because maybe it functions the same way.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It could. I think they just... I think it was the editors or whoever who wanted to stretch it out.
This whole conversation that's happening right now, Bella's talking about Jacob, like, with a husky voice, and I'm like, he's 15.
Yeah.
15-year-olds can have husky voices, but, like...
Probably don't.
You know? They literally just went through puberty, but... Yeah, this is also where they're all talking as a group. They start talking about the Cullens.
Yeah, and this is where Lauren, like, interjects herself into the situation to bring up the Cullens. Because for some reason she doesn't like that Bella is getting attention from one of them, I guess. There's no other way to explain it.
Yeah, they don't really explicitly state it because I don't think Bella knows. Bella mentions, like, Bella talking about Lauren again in this chapter says... on this page says, her pale fishy eyes narrowed, and I'm like, I just wrote, damn.
Yeah.
Like, fishy eyes. What is that? I've only ever heard of people, like, referring to people's eyes, like, in a negative way of, like, beady.
Yeah. Fishy.
Fishy? Like, what? And this is where Sam, the tallest, oldest, huskiest voiced person from the Quileute tribe, says... The Cullens don't come here in a tone that closes the subject, and it really piques Bella's interest.
It spurs her to take Jacob along and ask him more questions about that.
So, I don't remember Bella really consciously, intentionally flirting for information.
Yeah, she is.
Wow.
It's very interesting.
Because, like, I feel like I've just been accustomed to watching the movie, and it doesn't come across like that to
I feel
me.
like she has, like... Kristen Stewart gave it, like, one good moment where she's like, he's just like, it's just a story, Bella, and she's like, I want to know.
Yeah.
She, like flutters her eyes at him, like, in a way that is uncharacteristic, and I feel like that's the flirtation of this section.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the only way it comes across.
I just feel like this could have been communicated better in the movie if it was a comedy.
Yeah.
You know? Because it would have been really out of place...
Yeah.
In the tone of Twilight for
especially
it to be
because,
so obvious, but it would have been so fucking funny.
Yeah. She's specifically trying to imitate Edward, the way that Edward makes her feel.
Yeah.
And that would have been really hard to come across in the movie because, like, we don't understand that that's what's happening in the movie necessarily.
It's also super weird because she's, like, simultaneously, like, flirting, like, explicitly flirting with Jacob and also, like, refers to him as young Jacob. Like, she says, I hoped that young Jacob was as yet inexperienced around girls so that he wouldn't see through my sure to be pitiful attempts at flirting. And I'm like, if you are consciously thinking of someone as, like, younger than you, don't flirt with them.
Yeah. I've heard, like, the discourse that I don't get into the Tumblr discourse very much anymore, but, like,
me neither.
I've seen, like, some critiques of Bella in this situation saying, like, for her, like, leading him on, which I don't think should extend beyond this scene at all. Like, I don't think that after this it happens ever again.
It doesn't set a precedent for how she behaves. She just gets information from him, and then, like, it doesn't...
And it's
I don't think this is enough for him to get hopes up.
Yeah, and it's not very... She's not, like, complimenting him.
No, she's not, like, touching him. Yeah.
Or anything. She's really just kind of, like, being a little bit more friendly.
And she's acting, like, a little bit less direct than she would be if she was just asking the questions that she wanted to know.
She's trying to be casual.
Yeah.
She's trying to flatter him in order to get information out of him, but in a very subtle way. Like, she's like, so you're what, 16? I asked, trying not to look like an idiot as I fluttered my eyelids the way I'd seen girls do on TV.
Yeah.
She's just, like, complimenting him, making him feel special, which is interesting, and it works, which is so funny. That he's like, I'm not supposed to tell anyone about this, like, tribe secret, and then he just does it. In this section, he gives her, like, all this information. They walk down the beach, and it's, like, clouding in a little bit, so the scenery is ominous now, which I appreciated. And he starts giving this supposed Quileute legend, which is... Yeah. Since you looked it up.
So... When I was reading on page 124 about this, like, Quileute creation legend, something really struck me. Okay, so I don't know, because I'm not by any means an expert or Quileute. I'm white. So, I don't know, but the legend that's given in this book is... Well, there are lots of legends, some of them claiming to date back to the flood. Supposedly, the ancient Quileutes tied their canoes to the tops of the tallest trees on the mountain to survive, like Noah and the Ark. Another legend claims that we descended from wolves and that the wolves are our brothers still. It's against tribal law to kill them. And so I was curious. Like, I was curious about this whole flood thing. And I was like, is this referring to, like, the same great flood as, like, the great flood of the Bible? Is this Stephenie talking about the events of the Bible as if they're fact? Is this like a misapplication of, like, Stephenie thinking that biblical history can be, like, taken as fact, and that the only difference would be Noah's Ark versus Quileutes and canoes? Or is this, like, maybe the impact of Christian missionaries on the creation stories of native tribes, because sometimes those two things can be, like, reconciled in a really interesting way, so that, like, maybe it makes sense to, like, reconcile, like, Christianity with, like, the traditional, like narratives about, like, where your people come from and things like that. And so I decided to look it up. This was just Googling. It wasn't like I did any actual research, but I went onto the Quileute tribal website, and they have no mention of this whole, like, flood canoe thing. The only thing that I could find that was close to that was that, and that doesn't mean that it's not true, the only thing I could find that was close to that is that, like, Quileute elders or, like, tribal chiefs are sometimes buried in canoes that are tied to the tops of trees on the sacred burial ground. No mention of the flood, but that, again, that doesn't mean that's not a legend that's out there. And then this wolf thing is really interesting. So another legend claims that we descended from wolves and that the wolves are our brothers still. Okay, so the actual, like, Quileute creation legend is that, and it's really similar to the other tribes around the area, including the tribe that Embry's mom is supposedly from. There's all these tribes around the same area that have the same or similar creation story, and it's about this figure called the Transformer, which is, like, a English translation of what this figure is, and they travel around the Pacific Northwest region at the time of the creation and go to each tribe and transform an animal into a person. And so the creation story is that animals were once like people and lived in the same way that native people did in, like, houses, and they would, like, fish and have tribal meetings and things like that as animals. And then the Transformer goes through the area and changes multiple different tribes from different animals. And so the Quileutes have the wolves. I want to say another tribe had a dog. There were some from, like, birds, things like that. And so yes and no to this. Obviously they are not werewolves. Yeah. Obviously. And there's this really interesting website. It's at the Burke Museum website that has this really like a whole bunch of really interesting information. It's a museum of natural history in Seattle. And they have this, like, website that has, like, Twilight myths and misconceptions on it, which is really interesting. And they talk about kind of, like, the racial and class-based assumptions that are given to the Quileutes versus the Cullens. And I think that is some really interesting information that we'll probably talk more about later.
I think it's the fact that website, like, the disclaimers on their own website exist, probably speaks to the impact that this story had on, like, the actual Quileute people, and like how like if they need to state things like we're not werewolves.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, literally.
Like they probably had to undergo just like a lot of attention that was very probably misinformed and possibly offensive and just exploitative, really.
Yeah,
I mean, they totally had their story, they totally had their creation myths, their traditions, their name, their land utilized for plot in this story, and it's very telling that like that's evident because of what they have had to say publicly. Yeah, and I was reading about that, and a lot of the things that this museum website and even the tribal website are saying is like, we have guidelines about visiting our land, and like apparently back when Twilight was more in the news, MSN went out to do like a story on Twilight filming locations, and they had asked like expressly like written permission from the city of Forks or the town of Forks, and then had trespassed on tribal land and taken footage there without asking. Oh god. The Quileute Nation has like a law against like doing any recording without asking. Yeah. Because it's like sacred land, and there were there was footage of like burial sites that are not like accessible to the public. Jeez. And like people are not allowed to visit them, and people are very much not allowed to take pictures or videos there, and so the Quileute Nation asked MSN to take down the images, and they did, but they like shouldn't have been there in the first place. Yeah. Like they didn't ask, but they asked another town, so it wasn't just like poor planning. Like they did the planning, and they did the like asking of like the wrong people. Yeah. I was reading about the like tattoos, the tattoo imagery, and like the popularization of the tattoo imagery on like, merchandise and things like that, and how they never saw any of that money. But it's really interesting because the tattoo design is not Quileute. No. It's from an Alaskan, not a tribe, but a people called the Haida. It's on the Alaskan Panhandle. The imagery used by the graphic designer that worked for the Twilight team used that imagery instead of Quileute imagery, but then also like neither of the communities saw any of the money from all the merchandise sold. Right. Of like the Quileute like tattoo imagery of like the boys' shoulders. And like poorly done all around. Yeah, would we speculate that like if she I almost feel like if she felt like she had to use indigenous people in her story, then she should have like maybe made up a nation, but like I feel like maybe that could have been more disastrous. I was thinking about that because it's like then she relies on stereotypes, and it's kind of like this pan-Indian thing of like taking the most like sensationalist and like interesting, in quotes, I did air quotes but you can't see them, interesting parts of tribes to like mishmash together. Like I feel like she shouldn't have included them, or if she just like absolutely was going to, she should have talked to Quileute people, she should have gotten their permission, she should have had them give their insight to the story and like help her with like the things that she was writing about Quileute people, because then it would be more accurate and like perhaps have like a just better representation, because it could have had the opportunity to like maybe be positive. Yeah, especially because they're like, I don't know, they need money. Yeah. Like they need money to relocate because a lot of their like their schools and buildings are on the coastline, and the coastline is like eroding, and so it could have been a better relationship. I kind of also think like as Stephenie's moving forward after the first book got popular, it would have been nice to bring someone on as like a consultant for either like story writing purposes, and like I don't know how much depth she put into researching things, but I like at least for the movies like there could have been I don't know. The only thing that I've heard positively is that like I mean they did obviously Taylor Lautner is white. Yes. If you didn't know that, he's white. They did hire other indigenous actors to play these indigenous parts, but none of them were Quileute. Yeah. So it's like, what? And it's interesting because helpful. I was reading the statistic from the Burke Museum that like 50% of Quileute families were living in poverty at the time of like the Twilight like craze. Like it was just like a really stark contrast between the money that was like coming into the saga and then like that wasn't going anywhere. And it just seems like because the town of Forks has like the tourist locations, like they're generating some amount of profit
from that, and it just, like, sucks all around.
Yeah. Their movement is called Move to Higher Ground, and the website is just mthg.org. That's just, like, the tip of the iceberg, really.
Yeah, I have a lot more to say when we get to New Moon.
Yeah.
I have some stuff to say about, like, gender and domestic violence, which I was reading that's really interesting.
They're just, like, half naked all the time. It's, like, it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot to unpack.
Have you ever wondered why Pluto isn't a planet anymore? Have you always suspected that your favorite sci-fi show on Netflix had some scientific inaccuracies? And are you interested in keeping up on the latest news in space and astronomy? Then you should listen to Astronomy Brothers. It's a podcast hosted by two brothers and science communicators, Seth and Aaron Lockman.
Every episode, Seth and Aaron bring you the latest space news, geek out about their favorite space topics, and ponder not only the cosmos, but our role in it. Check out Astronomy Brothers wherever you get your podcasts, or follow them on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter at AstroBrosPod.
Aaron is a personal friend of Sam's.
Yes, we went to high school together.
And I have followed him on Twitter and now Instagram as of a few days ago, and I really, really enjoy him, so I'm sure you will also enjoy his podcast, which I'm actually really excited to listen to myself because I have a long flight coming up, and I'm really always excited to listen to podcasts of friends.
Last time I saw Aaron, we talked about our podcasts, and we were talking about, like, the intersection of our podcast interests. We were talking about vampires in space.
Ooh, I love that. Another thing that I'll say about Aaron is that he's always been extremely supportive of our podcast,
he listens.
Which is really, really awesome. So thanks for that.
Thanks, Aaron. And Seth, hi.
And Seth, hi. Anyway, so the explanation of the vampires,
yeah,
is that,
and the werewolves,
and the werewolves. Here. So the cold ones, the treaty or truce.
All the while, Bella is trying to casually intercept this information and try not to show how seriously she's taking it.
I think it was interesting because, like, there's many points throughout this, like, sharing of this story that Jacob kind of, like, pauses to poke fun or, like, roll his eyes or, like, whatever.
Yeah.
To, like, demonstrate that he doesn't believe in all this.
Right.
But I wonder how much of it he does believe in. And I was also thinking, like, the role of religion, which comes up when we meet Carlisle quite a bit, Christianity and all that fun stuff, but and Edward, like, his whole, like, spiritual soul bullshit. But the way that Stephenie's writing this, it seems like they're untouched by colonization.
Yeah.
Which I think is a thing that happens when white people write native tribes quite a bit. It acts as if they don't ever evolve, and it, like, kind of paints them as whatever they were at the time that, like, the most prominent anthropology report came out about them, and that they, like, don't change from there. Like, as, like, a static culture, and, like, nothing ever shifts. But Jacob is like, I don't believe in all this stuff, and it's like, well, we're, like, a lot of Quileute people are Christian, as many native people are, because of boarding schools and missionaries and colonization, and it's like, well, what do you believe in?
There's not a lot of talk of spirituality. Like, I guess in Eclipse, they talk about some of the legends in more depth, and there's more of an explanation of, like, the werewolf thing, and there's, like, a spiritual aspect to that. But they don't really talk about God or gods at all, outside of, like, the werewolf creation story that Stephenie Meyer has written.
Yeah, it makes me wonder, because it's like, unless I'm wrong, Billy and Harry and, like, maybe a couple of other people know.
Yeah. The elders
they
know
that this is real.
Yeah.
1,000% positive. And so, like, I don't think they would be influenced by Christian ideology if they know that their creation story is true, and if they know that, like,
so maybe they've instilled that,
and
like, maybe they just instilled a lack of Christianity because they personally don't believe it. That's kind of been infused into the tribe because they're the tribal elders. Yeah, that would make sense, I guess.
I don't know. Stephenie,
there's a lot of holes here.
Let me know.
They end their conversation. Bella feels positively about Jacob, but guilty for using him. And then she's like, basically now and for the next chapters, she's just, like, grappling with the fact that Edward is probably a vampire.
She's avoidant.
She's very avoidant, and we can take a little break, but, like, the next chapter is the most Virgo chapter we've had so far.
I wrote that a million times.
So
a million
Virgo.
times. Yeah, so at the end of this chapter, she's, like, heading home and trying really hard not to think, and I was just, like, noting that I actually really liked the chapter. I know I just, like, kind of went off, but
it's a good chapter. I really like that we had this huge chapter with Edward, and then we have this Jacob chapter, and, like, obviously Bella, like, kind of weaving in between, and it's, yeah.
It just makes me wish so much more for Jacob, which is new for me, I guess. Like, I wish that there wasn't this love triangle thing that was about to be imposed on these three people that
don't need it.
Like, I wish that we had gotten a Bella Jacob friendship that wasn't, like, tainted by that. And also, like, I can see where Stephenie had just totally, like, invented Jacob to explain the history through.
Yeah, because when he comes back, he's pretty different.
Yeah, when he starts acting as, like, a romantic interest in New Moon, it's just like, who is that?
There's so many layers to that I'm on, like, that's probably one of the things I'm most looking forward to getting into, because, like, reading it as a kid, I was, like, very much not a fan of Jacob, and, like, still, like, am not, because, like, canonically he sexually assaults Bella, and like, I'm not gonna, like, separate that out, but but also, like, it's important to acknowledge, like, the way that Stephenie Meyer has written this character is very racist, and, like, that's why it is the way that it is. There's just a lot of layers there, and I want to peel them back. He's sort of, like, doomed to fail. Like, he's supposed to be this foil to Edward and Bella, like, their relationship in general. I'm not a fan of it. It feels really overdone now. It didn't really feel overdone at the time, and I think maybe Twilight popularized or repopularized a lot of different tropes, especially in young adult fiction.
I think, like, some book tropes that are overdone, I have, like, a nostalgic appreciation for the first or most prominent one. So, the tragic gay story. I can not ingest a lot of new media that has sad lesbian stories because I'm over it, but I do love
the L Word.
I do love The Well of Loneliness, which is, like, the first lesbian novel, quote unquote. Like, the story about, like, the girl that, like, goes back to being straight like after, like, taking a quick, like, lesbian break. Like, I'm so sick of that, but I still enjoy The Well of Loneliness, like, because I know they invented it, and, like,
she's kissing Jessica Stein.
Or, like, literally any movie.
Literally any movie, especially from the late 90s, early 2000s.
But, like, I'm not gonna watch a new movie about that because it's been done a million times, and I'll, like, roll my eyes about it, but I mean, I don't feel that way about the love triangle at all. Like, I don't want it at all anywhere near me with anyone. Ever. The only way that I'll accept a love triangle is if it's, like, they get to be with both of them.
Only polyamorous love triangles. Alright, want to take a little break and do our mini segment, Love at First Bite?
So, welcome to Love at First Bite.
Thanks. Okay. Happy to be here.
This person is 45.
Okay.
You already swiping left?
No. I'm just, like, suspect.
The bio is looking for someone to road trip with, make art, and enjoy the sun. The song is you look so suspicious. Life is a Highway by Tom Cochrane or Rascal Flatts, depending on which version you prefer.
Okay.
And then the profile picture of them is them in a sun hat. They have curly hair. They're on the beach in the sun, and they have a beautiful, radiant smile.
Is it Renee?
Yeah.
Renee, oh my god, swipe right. MILF.
Absolute MILF, Renee Dwyer. I was actually just reading the Twilight wiki page for Renee earlier today, and did you know that when Renee graduated from high school, she took a year off and road tripped with one of her friends up and down the West Coast?
Wow.
Queen.
Same.
Queen things.
Wow. I love her. I love that for her. Romance. Forced romance. Run in the family. I bet she fucking knew when Bella was like, I'm gonna move to Forks, and she was like, you're gonna find a husband.
Real husband shit.
Wow. I love that. Renee totally would use Tinder.
Oh, yeah.
In this day and age.
Absolutely.
Like, if she didn't have Phil.
Wow. Phil is pointless. Changed my mind.
Phil's a plot device.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, he probably thought the same thing that I did, which is just MILF.
Yeah.
He's younger.
Yeah.
He's a baseball player.
Yeah.
Wow.
In Jacksonville. That was Love at First Bite.
Yep. Thanks for listening.
Back into the source material.
Chapter 7, Nightmare. Dream sequence. Again, Bella is fucking prophetic. She's prophetic.
Yes, she is.
This whole chapter is like her coping.
She intuitively now knows that Edward is a vampire.
Yeah.
She is just going through the process of accepting...
It's like almost like the 5 stages of grief,
Yeah.
but happier.
Right.
And riskier.
It makes her way happier
afterwards.
afterwards.
It's really funny, actually.
It doesn't... Like, she's kind of, like, freaking out and upset right now, and then as soon as she's like, yep, he's a vampire at the end, she's like, chill.
Fine. It's so Virgo. Also, at the very beginning of this chapter, on the first page of the chapter, she is listening to the CD that Phil gave her. This is also very Virgo. Mm-hmm. She's distracting herself from her thoughts. Mm-hmm. Like, she's avoiding them, and she puts on the headphones and, like, listens to the music really loud, like, several times through until she knows all the words. I'm pretty sure canonically this is a Linkin Park album,
yeah.
which is really funny.
So she has this dream. And what I thought was fascinating about this dream is that Mike Newton is in it.
Yeah.
You're so right. Are you kidding? Bella sees Jacob, and then...
She's at La Push again, basically.
Yeah, and she sees Jacob, and then she hears Mike's voice calling for her to run that way, and, like, Jacob's also telling her to run that way. Jacob turns into a wolf.
Literally, he shakes, falls to the floor, and then... disappears, and in his place was a large red-brown wolf with black eyes, which is, like, literally what he will look like as a wolf. So I don't know if that was, like, planned out, or if she just decided that that's what he was gonna look like.
I guess.
Like, because she already said it.
I don't know.
And
then Edward steps out from the trees, and he's, like, beckoning Bella towards him.
Mm-hmm.
So she steps towards him, and the wolf launches at him, and she wakes up.
Yeah. And she ends up, like, waking up really early and isn't able to sleep.
Yeah.
And so she does a bunch of things very meticulously to continue to avoid thinking about what she doesn't want to think about.
Virgo.
Very, very
so Virgo.
Yeah, she's, like, doing things that she doesn't have to do. Like, she's blow-drying her hair. And then she's, like, she is inevitably moving towards this research phase of going on the internet, the dial-up internet. LOL. She's eating cereal. She says, I ate slowly, chewing each bite with care. When I was done, I washed the bowl and spoon, dried them, and put them away. My feet dragged as I climbed the stairs. I went to my CD player first, picking it up off the floor and placing it precisely in the center of the table. I pulled out the headphones and put them away in the desk drawer, and then I turned the same CD on, turning it down to the point where it was background noise, and then she finally, like, opens up her computer.
Yeah. It's ridiculous.
But yeah, this is, like, the famous Googling vampire.
It's not necessarily
it might not
Google,
be Google,
though,
it is
because she just says I made it to my favorite search engine, and
which one does she use?
Don't know, and I need to. I
hope
need
it's
to.
Bing or like Ask Jeeves.
Ask Jeeves, or like
it could be Yahoo.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Yahoo would be good for this. She goes to a vampire site, which, like, as a kid I really wish existed.
Yeah. Okay, I was thinking about who made this website.
It's just like some lore place, a compilation of vampire lore.
Yeah.
Which is, like, really cool.
It's fascinating, and also, like, some of it's true.
Yeah, these are, like, actual different vampire myths from different parts of the world, I guess.
Strigoni Benefici is the one that stands out to her.
Because it's the only non-evil one.
Yes, because it says, an Italian vampire said to be on the side of goodness and a mortal enemy of all evil vampires. And it's like...
What is good and evil?
What is good and evil? Mm-hmm. Great question. Second, would we call the Volturi good?
Yeah, because they're the only Italian vampires in this. I think it's just, like, ends up not being anything.
Yeah. The Volturi aren't good.
No.
They just create
they're
order.
The vampire police.
Yeah.
We don't like that.
No. Okay, I was also thinking in this section as she's Googling vampires, something that's similar to what we were talking about with, like, the love triangle stuff.
Yeah.
And how it feels overdone now, but it's, like, not then.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about how, like, Twilight shapes so much about what I think about vampires and what other people think about vampires too, that it's interesting to remember that Bella lives in a Twilight-free world. And so, like...
Somehow.
By definition, she lives in a Twilight-free world. And so, what she knows about vampires, she mentions, like, some of these sound familiar to vampires that I know, some of them don't. The vampires that she knows are, like, Dracula?
Yeah. Like, Halloween kind of vampires.
Like, yeah. Or, like, I guess, like, the Count on Sesame Street? You know, like...
Maybe Queen of the Damned, Anne Rice, Apple's Vampire Lestat.
Maybe. But I feel like if she read those, she would mention them.
Yeah, she probably would have mentioned
right?
them.
Like,
yeah, she has, like, the stereotypes here, and she's comparing them to her list of things that she's noticed, and as well as Jacob's criteria, which is very Virgo. She's doing this very methodologically. She has a method to her research.
She, like, eventually becomes like, really upset with herself, and she's embarrassed about it, and she's saying, like, I was sitting in my room researching vampires. What was wrong with me? I decided that most of the blame belonged on the doorstep of the town of Forks and the entire Sodden Olympic Peninsula, for that matter.
Yeah.
I was thinking, because of that, I was thinking about how, like, we love a small town mystery, and also, like, this book could really be any genre. It just happens to be YA fiction, but it's, like, and fantasy, obviously, but, and like, romance. This could be a mystery, this could be a comedy, this could be, like, if it was written in a slightly different way with small tweaks, like, this could be, like, in so many different genres. Yeah, it could be a horror.
Yeah. Something that I don't think she understands yet, she mentions that she's like, well, vampires can't come out in the daytime. But I don't think she's put together that the Cullens are never in school when it's sunny. She doesn't, she's picked up on all these other things, but she's never put it together that, like, they're out of school all the time, and it's always when it's sunny.
Yeah. I think it's really explicit in the movie because it's one of the big clues.
And Jessica says it to her.
And Jessica, like, explicitly says
She's like, it's because they're camping.
Yeah.
And then she's just like, I'm gonna go into the woods.
Yeah. That's wild.
Yeah. It is really wild. She, like, is surrounding herself with the woods, which is what she was dreaming about, and that's where she decides to go to think and process all this information and to, like, continue the rest of her decision making. She says, here in the trees, it was much easier to believe the absurdities that embarrassed me indoors. Nothing had changed in this forest for thousands of years, and all the myths and legends of 100 different lands seemed much more likely in this green haze than they had in my clear-cut bedroom. And then she says, in a very Virgo manner, I forced myself to focus on the two most vital questions I had to answer, but I did so unwillingly. First, I had to decide if it was possible that what Jacob had said about the Cullens could be true. And then she, like, goes through all the different things that she's noticing and decides that, like, it really maybe could be true. And then she asks herself what she's going to do about it, and if she's going to take his advice and like, back out and, like, stay away from him. But that makes her very sad. And... And she realizes that she cares about him. Even, like, with the knowledge that he might be a vampire, she still just wants to be around him. And so she decides she's not going to do that. And that what does she decide? Does she say?
Says, and I knew...
She can't stay away?
In that I had my answer after. She's talking about reflecting on this, or she's reflecting on this dream that she had. And she's saying, you know... When I'd screamed out in terror at the werewolf's lunch, it wasn't fear for the wolf that brought the cry of no to my lips. It was fear that he would be harmed, even as he called to me with the sharp-edged fangs. I feared for him. And I was like, 1, get fucked, Jacob. 2, we love that. And then she says, and I knew in that I had my answer. I didn't know if there was ever really a choice. I was already in too deep.
So she basically just decides that she can't stay away and she's not going to, but she doesn't really say, she doesn't, like, plan on doing anything about it.
Yeah.
She's like, okay, business as usual.
Status quo.
Yeah.
She's kind of talking about, like, this had always been my way, like, making decisions was hard for me, and then once the decision was made, I always followed through.
I think that's
like,
really interesting character development right there.
She truly, like, is all in on this decision for the rest of her life. She absolutely never questions ever again if Edward is dangerous for her. Like, she doesn't have insecurities about her decision at all. She literally
she's ready to follow through.
Made the decision in this moment and never falters from it for the rest of the series.
And then she does a very Virgo thing, which is she just goes to work on her essay.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a little part on 141 where she opens her window because it's nice out, and she says, I opened the window, surprised when it opened silently, without sticking, not having opened it in who knows how many years.
Yes.
She doesn't know it yet, but Edward's been watching her sleep for God knows how long. She's, like, in such a hilariously good mood now.
She's thrilled, and it's really sad because I had this moment of, like, the like, sinking stomach feeling because I was like, oh my God, he's not gonna be there, it's sunny.
Yeah, and it's funny that she doesn't even know. Like, she's like, he's a vampire, and... Like, she knows he's a vampire, but she's still expecting him to be out in the sun, which is funny that she hasn't considered that yet.
She's really observant, and she hasn't picked up on that, and I'm surprised.
She's at school the next day. It must be Monday. And she is talking with Mike, who comes up to her before school, and she's telling him about her essay, and I guess she's going to write her essay on whether Shakespeare's treatment of the female characters is misogynistic. And I'm like, is it Stephenie? I feel like that was an interesting thing for
I'd
Stephenie
love
Meyer
to
say.
read that essay.
Yeah. I want to know what Stephenie has to say about that.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. I think it's also kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy because now everyone writes about whether Twilight,
Yeah.
like Stephenie Meyer's treatment of the female characters is misogynistic.
Yeah. It's an interesting idea. It wasn't very self-aware.
Yeah.
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 Because Stephenie Meyer does mistreat her female characters a lot.
Yeah. Yes.
A lot. Almost all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then Mike asks her out on a date, which is funny. And then she deflects really easily.
She really does. She says, I really like this and I wish that it was in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
She says, I think, and if you ever repeat what I'm saying right now, I will cheerfully beat you to death, I threatened, but I think that would hurt Jessica's feelings. And he was bewildered. And she goes, really, Mike, are you blind?
He's never thought about it before. And then Edward's not at school.
Yeah, it's so sad. I don't know. I just think it's really vivid, the feeling of, like, the frenzy of anticipation she, like, says.
Yeah, true.
She has, and I just love how, like, vivid that is. Like, it's very teenager with a crush. Like, I know that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Like...
Describe one crush.
No. No, I just, like, remember being excited to go to school and, like, being excited to go to classes that I had with people that I had a crush on.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I remember also... Okay, this is probably really good. Me and my friend from middle school, we both had a crush on this one person, and we knew that his mom grocery shopped. She lived, like, right behind our Publix, which is the Florida grocery store. And we knew that she either went on Saturday mornings or Friday nights grocery shopping. And so every Friday night or Saturday morning, we would, like, go walk around Publix and, like, try to run into him and his mom grocery shopping. And we would, like, literally, like, get home from school and spend, like, 8 years putting on, like, 2 coats of mascara because we did not have other makeup at that point. And we would, like, absolutely, like, we would change clothes 900 times. And it was like, okay, we're going to Publix. Wow. And then if we didn't catch them on Friday nights, we would literally go on Saturday mornings and walk around, and, like, people that were working there both times were probably like, what the fuck are these girls doing walking around Publix? We'd always buy, like, one thing after being there for, like, hours. It was so fun.
Oh my god.
We ran into him quite a lot.
Wow. I wonder what he thinks about that now.
I'd love to ask him.
I wonder if he's aware.
I don't know.
I'm sure his mom was aware.
Knew that my friend had a crush on him. But did not know that I did, and they got together.
Oh, damn, love triangle.
Yeah, and they were together for quite a long time, actually. What a love triangle that was.
Love triangle, so, can't believe you
lost.
Jacob
in that one.
Yeah. you lost to the Publix love triangle.
But I remember that feeling. I also had chorus with this person, and my friend did not. And so I was like... This is my chance in chorus every day. And I was, like, you know, the chorus, like, superstar of middle school. So, I mean, I wasn't good. I was just very involved. It was not, like, it was wild. But I would, like, make the seating chart. So I would, like, sit myself next to him. And there was this other girl in our chorus class that also had a crush on him. And I, like, sat her really far away. And then I would be like, oh my god, she's so desperate. Look at her.
You've been doing this for years.
But it's like, it was also for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've always done this.
I've always done this. I've been this way for my entire life.
The last bit of this chapter is when Bella goes out and reads her Jane Austen compilation in the yard, but gets frustrated because the main characters' names are Edward and Edmund, and it's just, like, frustrating, and she falls asleep. And then, like, there's another kind of, like, moment where she wakes up and she feels like she's not alone. And she's not. She's not, because Edward's definitely in the trees.
Edward's sitting in the trees watching her, and I really like that part of Midnight Sun.
Yeah. She's decided that she is going to go to Port Angeles. She's, like, she's feeling bummed out that she hasn't been able to see Edward yet, and she's, like, trying to, like, pick herself up, and she's, like, starting to feel good about getting out of town. So the next chapter... will be the Port Angeles chapter.
She also says this thing, this, like, comment made kind of offhand. She's watching TV with Charlie, and she says, it felt good despite my depression to make him happy.
Yeah.
And I was like,
I saw that.
Wow. Like, the emotional range of this chapter of her being, like, incredibly anxious, distracting herself, to being, like, really at peace, giddy, happy, excited, and then extremely low when Edward's not there. And she's like, I don't even know I'm gonna see him again. And it's like, oh my god. It's, like, a lot.
It is a lot.
But it's a good chapter.
Yeah.
I really like it.
Yeah, she goes through a lot. And we get to, like, go through every stage with her. So, Port Angeles, big chapter. Oh, and we should plug something.
So let's plug your favorite shower product that's in your shower right now.
My Lush Sleepy body wash.
That was gonna be mine also.
That was previously called Twilight.
I was gonna also talk about that. That's okay because I have a runner-up. The 4 different scents of Dr. Bronner's that you have to choose from in your shower.
Alex is the one who uses them.
Yeah.
He loves them. All right. Well, that's it for this one. That's all, Forks.
Dead inside. That's all, Forks. Thank you for listening to Gender Forking. All of Season 1 is now streaming.
To stay updated about the podcast, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at @genderforking.
For more Twilight content from us, you can follow our blog at bowlingshirtfellas.tumblr.com. For other inquiries, email us at bowlingshirtfellas@gmail.com.
If you're interested in supporting the production and maintenance of this podcast, head to patreon.com/genderforking. The music you are hearing is from O Lucifer.